Now, I wish I could say I've been procrastinating on making this episode because I don't want to end Hacks and Hijinks, but actually, I've been busy with a few other things, particularly finishing uni, meeting my friends after 18 months, and finally taking care of my mental health. And so, after taking a long break, we're on to the final episode of Hacks and Hijinks. We finished off with Paul talking about everything that was going on in the morning, particularly all the logistics around handing Taryn the hard drive that contained all the videos of the day so that Taryn could get the video done just in time for opening ceremony, which was in about 6 hours at this point in time. Aside from that, some of the other things we had to look out for included a fat Asda delivery for some food. I was asleep and my phone number was the point of contact, so they kept calling me up, but because I was asleep, I just wasn't able to pick up. Fortunately, I did manage to wake up and tell them, oh, this other number will call you instead, and I handed that over to Eugene and Isaac to handle with, which they did absolutely brilliantly. Thank you guys. And aside from the delivery, it was also everything to do with breakfast and getting everything sorted out for breakfast so that everyone could be energized and ready to go for the final leg of hacking. As previously mentioned, we did have a kerfuffle with the caterers on Saturday, but because we figured out the system that worked, this meant that on Sunday when we had our next set of lunch caterers, it was much more smooth and a lot more efficient in terms of getting everyone across and getting the food to everyone. And I think this time we actually had 0 leftover food, which was incredibly insane, which meant that the numbers that we worked out ended up being precisely on point, which I was really glad with. Now, with the final leg of all the hackers going towards finishing their project and also making sure everything is perfect for their demos, just in case, you know, they have to go and present up on screen and stuff like that. We know it's a really stressful time, which is why we just broadcast on everything, like submit your hacks now, a good hour before the actual deadline. Now this is to make sure that no team actually misses the submission deadline, because that would be very terrible, especially if they have a really amazing hack but they just weren't able to submit in time. At this point, IC Hack was like a whole year and a half ago, but I think judging takes place shortly after lunch ends. That's because we get the judges to have lunch before any of the other hackers, and whilst the hackers are having lunch, the judges are actually briefed on the categories that they have to judge for and exactly what they're looking for when they go around to all these tables and all the hacks that have been submitted for either their specific price category or one of the price categories that we have selected. Some of the things that we brief the judges to look for is technicality, originality, and how relevant the hack is to the category that it's been submitted for. Now, because we have so many hacks going on and so little time to go through all of the judging and prepare for closing ceremony and all the slides that go into it, we also get a lot of the volunteers that have also been helping out to help with their judging, especially for the DocSoc price categories. I think, you know, we've reached the end. We're basically at judging. Nothing else can go wrong in terms of logistics, right? We're basically at the end. There's nothing more to come, is there? You'd be wrong, because we ended up having to deal with the fallout of a storm which was absolutely bonkers to deal with whilst everything was going down, because that meant that we had a lot of stuff that was outside which we had to suddenly make sure that we could grab. I think the gazebo that we set up was also blown away by the storm, which wasn't ideal. Aside from all the storm shenanigans that was going on and all the judges that was going on indoors just to make sure everything was going smoothly and stuff like that, one of the things that actually gets overlooked, mainly because everyone is tired and nobody really has the sort of mental capacity to deal with it at this point in time, given the sleep deprivation everyone is going through right now, and that is the closing ceremony slides. So now what happens is a very fluid dance between the sponsors who are roaming around judging their own price categories, the sponsors that are helping with the DocSoc price categories, and the volunteers that are also judging the DocSoc prizes. All of this needs to be communicated effectively to the leads as well as the judging lead coordinator, just to make sure that we have shortlisted the correct teams for the prizes. Now this is usually done over Slack or sometimes even just text messaging each other just to make sure everything's going up and correct, because what's happening at this point is that all this information was being fed to me as I was making the slides, which meant that the teams as well as their hacks were being put onto the slideshow as the judging was going on. And this was constantly changing as companies decided on different teams, or we had to switch around our teams because there was conflicts with some of the other teams that have been nominated and stuff like that. On top of making the slides for closing ceremony, another task that needs to be done simultaneously is bringing in all the prizes and all the Queen's Tower trophies into the main hall, because obviously we want to give out all the prizes then and there at the ceremony without having to sort of wait for the winners to sort of linger around whilst we get all the prizes out. Another point for giving the prizes early during the ceremony is that we actually get the photo opportunity of the team with their winning prizes, as well as just making sure that cleanup just begins a lot earlier as well. As you may have seen from the previous episodes, when someone's laptop died during the ceremony, I decided to use my own laptop instead, and George had this really clever idea of adding in the HDMI switcher so that the other team could plug in their laptop for presentation, and then we can quickly switch back to the ceremony presentation and just make sure that the demos as well as the slides were moving perfectly smoothly and on time. When it comes to the teams demoing their projects, I think they're given something around 3 to 5 minutes to demo the entirety of their project, and that's a really hard cutoff that we have just to make sure that the ceremony is going to end on time. Now, whilst we have mentioned throughout the entire series that timing is pivotal when it comes to certain things, it is so important that we get closing ceremony wrapped up super quick, because we want our volunteers to be freed up to be able to help with the cleanup, because after having around 550 people throughout campus, there's going to be a lot to clean up. I'd say compared to previous years, IC Hack 20's closing ceremony went by one of the most smoothest ways. Mainly because there was very little conflicts when it came to the finalized teams, as well as like very little dependency issues when it came to our Docs Hop prizes as well. It's also during the closing ceremony that we present the karaoke prizes as well as the best meme prize as well, which, as you can imagine, are very jokey prizes. So now by this point, closing ceremony has wrapped up, and you know, we've told everyone to see them soon again at IC Hack 21. And you'd think that's the end. No, this is just the beginning of cleanup. Woo! So now this year, actually, the volunteers were super efficient in that the remaining volunteers actually started cleaning up whilst closing ceremony was taking place, which meant that when closing ceremony was over, all we had to do was move some of the larger items around instead of having to deal with all the little bits of rubbish that was lying around, all the bits of hardware that we needed to collect and everything that was also left for much later. But again, all the big pieces are actually much easier to deal with when you have all the smaller pieces and the pieces of litter actually cleared up beforehand. Since we also order a lot of perishable foods as well, we highly encourage all the attendees to take them as they leave. Anything that the attendees haven't taken, the volunteers are also welcome to take as well, especially perishable goods. Anything else that is packaged or can be used at a later time, we tend to put in Huxley Tea Point or in CGCU offices to make sure that the food is actually used up and is not going to the bin. Now, in previous years, pack up has gone on until late into the night. However, this time I think we were finished just after sundown, which was incredible. It was just so incredible that by 8 p.m. we were basically done with packing up and everything. All that was left was a few bits and pieces that we needed to send over to the union or to mail out to any of the sponsors because they'd sent it over to us. It was just incredible that I was able to be in bed by 11 p.m. post IC Hack, when the previous year when I had volunteered it had been, what, I think 1 a.m. when I went to bed. So as you can imagine, we really cut that pack up time down by a lot. Now you might think, oh, pack up, this is the end, this is, you know, when it's all finished. Wrong! IC Hack's never finished. Usually a few days afterwards, we have a post-mortem meeting which goes on for a few hours where we look over every single event and every single mess and fuck up that happened, just to make sure we don't do it again. I think the post-mortem board is filled with so many suggestions for what to do for the next IC Hack and what, you know, could be done better, and also what we wish we could have done if we had the time, and you know, just a whole lot of advice just to make sure that the next year's just runs even more smoothly as possible. And yeah, after that post-mortem meeting, we are finished with IC Hack. I do have to say that when it comes to an event like Icy Hack, it's at such a huge scale, and especially as a student-run event, I haven't seen anything else like it. What really shocked me was the time frame it takes to pull together the hackathon, because when you look at it, we get this event together in around 2 months time, which is incredibly insane. And given that an event like this usually takes 3 months at least, and a whole team of people to make sure that it's going through. And I say with Icy Hack, even though the work is spread out, it is a few core people that are holding it all together and making it come true. When it comes to Icy Hack 20, what I wanted to do was to get all of my little videos and vlogs together, mash them all up into a 2-hour clip and call it a day. I think because the world basically paused a month after Icy Hack, I feel like I wanted to relive the sort of good times by extending this Hacks and Hijinks project and just vicariously living through myself again, just to sort of be transported back to a time when everything was sort of normal. And also it was just so much more fun to have it as a series and just detail everything and to just talk at a camera for whatever videos and get like 10 views for them. Looking back, I am so glad that I decided to take charge and run the show, because now I'm just filled with so much knowledge and all the intricacies surrounding Icy Hack that I can actually be helpful to the next set of people that are going to be actually running Icy Hack 22 at this point. And hopefully from my help, as well as all of the documentation that we have from years before, they will be able to return Icy Hack to its previous glory and make it so amazing again. Now, if you have made it through this far, what are you doing with your life? If you have watched all of Hacks and Hijinks, I think you're also reliving the good times, and also a time when DocSoc events were actually happening in person. And I really hope I was able to provide that for you, except for all of the long clips of where I'm just talking about my own personal experiences. I hope you've made it through this arduously long series, and I very much hope I can see you at Icy Hack next year. So it's been a lot of hacks, it's been a lot of hijinks, which you've seen and you've experienced. Here's to Icy Hack 22, I guess. Take care. See ya!